Everyone tells women to fight for a seat at the table. But what if that seat isn't worth it?
And I realized that, oh, this is what I was fighting for. Yeah, no, it wasn't worth it. There doesn't need to be boundaries, which is bullshit.
Sometimes setting boundaries means I might lose my opportunity here.
It turned into a gaslighting moment of,
Yeah.
what are you talking about? I was put in a position where my silence did more harm than my voice would have.
Welcome back to No One Told Me This, the podcast where we unpack what it really means to be a woman in leadership. Everyone tells women to fight for a seat at the table. But what if that seat isn't worth it? What happens when that seat also comes with sacrifices we weren't prepared for, the need to change in order to fit in, and even crossed boundaries? Sometimes the table costs more than it gives. Today, we're asking this crucial question, and my guest, Dana Alhanbali, is a powerhouse strategist, storyteller, and founder who's built brands, spoken on global stages, and challenged cultural norms. She's the host of Something to Consider, a podcast diving deep into culture, entrepreneurship, mental health, and the harder questions we often leave unsaid. Together, we're pulling back the curtain on power dynamics and what really happens when women finally get that seat. So whether you're fighting to get it, have it already, or are wondering if you want it at all, this one's for you. Let's get into it. Dana, welcome to the pod.
Thank you. Thank you, Jess. Thank you for that introduction.
It's my pleasure. There's so many things to say about you, actually. And I was like, how do I make this concise? Because I also want you to be able to give us your own flavor of who you are and what you do. But thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure.
I have been equally excited and nervous about this conversation because I know that when we're talking about sensitive topics for women, I know it brings up a lot of things. Even for me, I'm like, what are we going to go into? Am I ready for this? But that's what lets me know that it's a necessary conversation. And that's how I like to frame the conversation. So it would be good for us to start with understanding more about you. Who are you beyond the bio? Who's the woman behind the brand?
Well, I mean, there are so many ways I could start to frame this, but I think if I wanted to kind of sum up my experience through the lens of my career, I am a creative who started in the industry as a designer, developed into a strategist, and grew to become someone who ran a regional office in a multinational advertising and media agency, a global one that was based in the region. And it happened quite fast. The trajectory of my growth in my career happened quite fast, which was in its own way kind of a blessing that brought with it a lot of challenges. I also very quickly decided that I wanted to become an entrepreneur. So when I met my co-founder, we decided to set up our own creative firm, Beatty and Dane, which within its first year of inception became a globally awarded agency.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it was an incredible experience because it was a testament to the work that that got us to that point where we were being recognized globally, but also a real opportunity to kind of prove to ourselves that we were worthy in the eyes of ourselves. And yeah, it was a beautiful, beautiful time in my life. And then a couple of years ago, I decided to sell and exit and go into the second part of my journey, which meant that I left my hometown and moved to Dubai. And that's when I started my podcast, my second company, and opened a door to new challenges. So I guess I am an amalgamation of the incredible opportunities that have led me to where I am today.
Yeah, first of all, you are busy.
I am.
That's a lot going on.
I am.
And I feel like with every step you've taken, it's opened up the door for like so many more opportunities, which is like incredible, actually.
Absolutely.
Yeah, what believing in yourself can do.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if your younger self could see you now, what would surprise her the most about this life that you have created?
Oh my gosh. Honestly, I feel like not much. Like I was a very ambitious young girl. I was a theater kid,
Okay.
so I was very expressive. I was the kid that used to love being on stage, love presenting, which I think is where my kind of love for pitching came from. But I loved being on stage. I love finding ways to express myself, whether it was through the arts or through acquiring specific knowledge, skill sets, things like that. So I think my younger self would look at where I am today and be quite impressed. But I don't think, if I'm being honest with myself, it wouldn't just be the achievements that she would be looking at. She'd be impressed at how much I've embraced where life has brought me.
Yeah.
Because that has been that's been the hard part. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think she'd be surprised and not surprised, if that makes sense.
I love that.
Yeah.
I'm interested to know, what is something that people often assume about you, but it isn't actually true?
What is something people assume about me? That I don't need anyone. I think I have quite a strong personality, and I think I do a very good job of carrying myself well and carrying weight well.
Okay.
And it was something that I used to wear as a badge of honor.
Yeah.
Until I realized that it suddenly became an excuse for a lot of people to assume that I didn't need support at the times when I really did. So I think, yeah, in reflecting back, that would be it.
Fair enough. I think a lot of women can relate to that because I think we are, in my opinion, conditioned to carry a lot of weight and to not complain about it as much, but this is almost a woman's work, you know what I mean? So it's quite liberating to hear that, because maybe some women will allow themselves to be seen. Yeah.
I also think that, I mean, we talk about it as something that women have been conditioned to kind of believe and take on, which I agree with. But I also think that it's something that a lot of strong women inherit. Sometimes strong men, but I'm talking about strong women in particular, because I feel like when a woman does carry it well, it's almost something that gets taken for granted. I saw a beautiful quote on Instagram a couple of years ago, and it really, I was able to sit with it, and it really resonated with me. It said something like, do you check on your strong friends as much as you do the ones that you think need your help? And it really made me think about how many times I was someone who proactively reached out to ensure that my community, my family, my colleagues were okay.
Yeah.
And it made me question why, at a lot of points in time, was that not reciprocated?
Yeah. I get it. And I think it takes some introspection on our part. But then if we are able to think, yeah, actually, let me check on other people, and also let me say if I'm not okay, then more people actually realize, oh yeah, actually I should check in a lot more. Maybe I just didn't know what I didn't know, you know? I'm wondering whether, when you think about your career journey, is there a moment that you thought to yourself, no one told me this. I wish that someone would have told me this a little bit earlier?
Oh my gosh. I think there are so many things, first of all. When I think about the things that I wish someone would have told me, I think a lot of those things center around how much I would need to rely on myself in my journey.
Yeah.
I wish someone told me how much I needed to rely on myself. Because I think there was this naive assumption that I made that, you know, your merit was going to get you to a place where whatever you put out there, you're going to be receiving equally. And I don't think that was necessarily the case for me. I felt like there were a lot of times where a lot of what I was putting out, I wasn't getting the same in return. And it turned into being quite an exhausting process. And I wasn't taking care of me, which is completely on me. I'm not saying this to kind of point the finger that, you know, I'm the victim of this. But that's what happened. I felt like, you know, I very much I started my career under this assumption that I was going to be part of something collectively. And I very quickly realized that it's kind of every man for himself.
It is like that.
Yeah, I know.
It definitely is like that. Have you ever had a time where you felt like the table that you're working so hard to get a seat at, like maybe this just isn't worth all of the work? I mean, when you're talking about like getting burnt out and like giving so much and not getting the same back, I wonder whether you've had that moment where you just think, is this even worth it at all? Like, what am I even fighting for?
Mm-hmm. I think especially my generation, growing up, there was always this focus around pushing and encouraging women to do it all, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Actually, it's something that I always saw empowering, and it was what I aspired to and everyone around me aspired to. But I feel like it came at the cost of my sanity, my health, and a lot of other things that I took for granted. Now, when I think about wanting it all or doing it all, I'm of the mindset that you can have it all, but not at the same time. But I feel like I was trying to be everything to everybody so much, which took a toll on me. And when I think about my career in particular, I initially was working in a very male-dominated industry. And there are rules to the game. There are, there's a specific attitude, there's a specific lifestyle, there's a specific mindset that's different to the way that I grew up and the culture that I was part of. So it was really challenging to navigate. And I didn't feel comfortable enough to seek help from anyone around me to just understand it. It was one of those things that I kind of had to figure out once I got there. So that was incredibly intimidating. And when I think about this idea of was it worth it, I feel like when I think about me wanting to get a seat at the table, it was me wanting to have access to opportunity. So I think I was always someone that proactively sought opportunity and put myself in situations where, I volunteered my time. I would work overtime. I would go above and beyond to have access to specific opportunities. But I felt like not everyone had to do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And it made me wonder why I had to. And it became very apparent to me that really what I was doing was I was playing a game that already had a set of rules. And the expectation was I had to figure out how to follow the rules in order to play the game. So when I think about whether it was worth it or not, at the time, I felt like I had to make specific compromises, which in retrospect, I wouldn't have made. Because once I got to the table and I realized that, this is what I was fighting for. Yeah, no, it wasn't worth it. And a lot of that is a reflection on the value I knew I could bring to the table versus the hoops I had to jump through to get there.
You originally said that like you found that you had to kind of do certain things in order to get, I guess the opportunities and this, that, and the other. But then when you looked around you, other people didn't necessarily have to do those things. And you've hit a really important point. And I'm wondering if there was a reason why they didn't have to do those things. Was it like nepotism and people are bringing in their friends and family? Or is it like they just wanted a particular type of person for the type of role that they had? Or do you know what I mean? Like, was there like a reason that you could pinpoint at least?
I mean, look, like I said, it was a very male-dominated industry. And it's very easy for me to say that it was just a guy's club, which it was. I mean, to be fair, I was usually the minority. I was, one of the youngest and only women within my circle working in this field at the time.
You touched on something. You said that about compromises that you made in order to get to the place to get to the seat at the table. And I'm wondering, was there like a biggest compromise that you can think of that you made, and that compromise just made you feel like, yeah, this definitely wasn't worth whatever I just gave up?
Yeah. I think when I think about compromise, it reminds me of times where I wasn't comfortable in specific spaces I was working in. Okay. And that came due to kind of an accepted culture that you were expected to abide by.
Yeah.
And I feel like I didn't listen to myself enough when I wasn't comfortable in spaces where, you know, if something was off, it was almost dismissed.
Yeah.
And I was quite young at the time. And when you're young and you're ambitious and you're excited and everything around you is new, you fall into the trap of thinking, but it's supposed to be like this. And I kind of just have to go with the flow and not be nitpicky about it, not be such a girl about it. Like, just, this is adulthood. This is what it looks like.
Yeah.
When in reality, this is not what adulthood is. This is what toxic culture is. And it's one of those things that you learn over time, that you do have a right to speak out if you're not comfortable. And you shouldn't have to compromise on your beliefs or your values to be accepted in specific spaces, in or outside the boardroom or work or whatever, wherever it may be.
Absolutely. Why do you think that women are still kind of expected to be like a guy's girl? And basically just try to fit in, and like, what toll do you think that actually has on us as women?
I think being a guy's girl is something that has been sold to us as the key to getting in, to making it into the club.
Yeah.
Okay. And I don't think there's anything wrong with it, because when I think about my own life, I had a lot more guy friends than I had girlfriends. I would get along with the guys more than I would the girls, which in itself is another conversation, by the way, which maybe we can get to later. But when I think about the way that it was always framed and almost celebrated, it was, okay, you're not holding on to anything in particular. You can be let in.
Yeah.
Things are going to slide.
Yeah.
You're cool. You're one of us. We can say anything in front of you, which I think is quite dangerous, because what that does is kind of impose a belief system that for us to be able to coexist, there doesn't need to be boundaries, which is bullshit, or BS, excuse me. Boundaries are incredibly important in the workspace, outside the workspace, in relationships and friendships. And I think in work cultures that are built on assumptions of just go with the flow and be cool, I think not having boundaries in those spaces invites opportunities that shouldn't happen.
I feel like we keep touching on really, really important points that I really love. And this theme of boundaries. It's really important for, I think, us as women to be able to set boundaries here. But like the example that you're giving, sometimes setting boundaries means I might lose my opportunity here. And if I'm exiled from the club, then any opportunities that come with that means I'm no longer sort of in the running for. And it's a kind of self-censorship, you know, it's a kind of like, I can't say this, it's not really a safe space. I wonder how you have kind of learned to set boundaries in spaces that didn't necessarily want to respect your boundaries.
I kind of want to set more context to be able to really speak on this, because I think it's an incredibly important issue. What I'm alluding to here is that I grew up and started my career at a time where it wasn't necessarily mainstream for a woman to come out and assert herself very clearly in the workplace. Why? Because a woman was still fighting for her opportunity to be seen and respected in the workplace.
Yeah.
And it's funny, in 2025, we talk about it as if it's, millennia ago, but actually I'm talking about 10, 15 years ago. I remember being in offices where if a woman would get promoted, there would be eye rolls from men and women around, what did she have to do to get that promotion? And it's so sad. It's so sad that I have to say that, but it is true. That is what existed back then. So I think, again, to set the context, that was the behavior that I was introduced to when I entered the workplace. So there was a fear around this idea of kind of asserting yourself and your boundaries, because it felt like you were being invited into a place kind of out of the goodness of their heart, versus you earned your place there.
Yeah.
This idea of being promoted or being accepted based on merit didn't feel like it was the truth, if I'm being honest. So in the space of that culture, when I think about it, asserting my boundaries was a challenge. And there were a lot of inappropriate things that used to happen in front of me, whether it was crass jokes, salacious gossip, incredibly demeaning things that were said about women in leadership positions. And unfortunately, there weren't enough women in leadership positions at the time that were open to sharing their experiences with younger women. Because also it was a fight for them to get to where they got. So it's not like, they had a minute to come and kind of, tap us on the shoulder and say that, we'll be here for you. And it's so weird, even talking to you about this now, like I can't believe this was only like 15, 16 years ago. It's insane. It's insane how different things are now. So going back to your question, you asked me, how did I learn to assert my boundaries?
Yeah.
I think it was when I was put in a position where my silence did more harm than my voice would have. I should have voiced my opinion about specific things that I saw that I was not comfortable with, and I didn't. And I feel like I had to be put in a situation where I didn't speak up about something, and just the weight of that was enough to tell me, no, I'm never going to do this again.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of why when I became an entrepreneur and we launched our first company, the culture and the kind of safety we wanted our team to feel when they were working with us, whether they were full-time hires or collaborators that were working with us on a contract basis, there was a specific safety that we wanted them to feel when they came in. It wasn't just about inclusion. It was about, if you come into a place, you are agreeing to the parameters of how we engage with each other. And those parameters are defined by a value system that is grounded in respect, in the way that we speak to each other, in the way we engage with each other, and in the boundaries that will not be crossed.
You kind of left me speechless because
Really?
Yeah, because I'm like, that's the kind of working environment that everyone wants to find, ultimately. And we find ourselves, I think, navigating maybe the remnants of the way things used to be, but also, unfortunately, there are still some places like that. And I think it depends on the field that you're in. If it still is predominantly male dominated and there are still just sort of old school thinking, old school, I guess what people would see as jokes or work banter or, just that kind of environment. But I think a lot of women are experiencing and navigating these things on a daily basis, even now, if I'm honest, which is unfortunate. I wonder, when you touch on, things that you've seen in front of you that weren't necessarily appropriate and things like that, I wonder whether you've had any personal experiences of this, because it's always one thing seeing things happen inappropriately to someone else, and then it's always another thing, things happening inappropriately to you. And I wonder if you've had any experiences of that in these workspaces, of anything that was either sexually inappropriate or coercion of any kind, or anything where you felt like if you're speaking up about this, you risk, losing, I don't know whether it's your job or the way that people see you, maybe reputation, anything like that.
God, just you asking me that question kind of brings back so many instances. And without going into details, because I really want this to kind of be an objective recount. And there's a reason why. I do remember there were multiple occasions, especially when the age gap between me and the person that I was speaking to was enormous.
Okay.
And usually when that happens, there's a power dynamic at play, right? Which makes it even more difficult for you to speak out. And I think if I wanted to frame this around what happened, there was an inappropriate conversation that this person tried to have with me. And I remember when I questioned it, or when I didn't respond in the way that this person was expecting, they looked at me like completely, like it turned into a gaslighting moment of, what are you talking about? Well, what did I say? I didn't do anything. I think you're making a bigger deal. Why are you reacting this way? Why are you raising your voice? Okay, calm down, Dana. This complete dismissive kind of behavior.
Yeah.
Which, interestingly enough, especially me at that age, I was just starting out. like I said, the trajectory of my career was quite fast. So, I was proving myself at these companies, and I was getting beautiful opportunities to kind of shine. So a large part of when you have a taste of any sort of success is you don't want to rock the boat.
Yeah.
And speaking up for yourself sometimes feels like it's rocking the boat. And I remember at that time, a lot of what I felt, I like a lot of what I used to think is who can I go to?
Yeah.
If I go to my family or people that truly care about me, they're going to encourage me to leave. And I'm trying to build my career. This is the beginning. No one gets opportunities like this. Thankfully, I was never in situations that were drastic. I don't want to compare this to a lot of the awful things that have happened to women in the workplace. But I also don't want to dismiss it because I don't think it's okay. I don't think it's appropriate. And the reason I'm so adamant on talking about it now is because when I reflect and think about my own kids one day, when they go into the workplace, what I would warn them about, it would be this type of behavior.
Yeah.
Their opportunities do not lie in the hands of their employer, no matter where you are. And thank God we are now living in a place where people are speaking out. And this idea of having boundaries is something that is not only being embraced, but is something that is at the forefront of every conversation in the workplace.
Yeah, it's a necessary conversation. And I think also understanding where boundaries are like needed and necessary and where maybe you can flex a little bit, I think it depends. Sometimes, for example, there are things that people say in terms of maybe after work drinks. If you're not at after work drinks, a lot of the decisions get made. And if you're not part of that group, then you probably miss out on, I don't know, if they're like, oh, this person will get promoted into this or that, whatever. So I think there are some times when maybe, although you have maybe strict boundaries about going to work, coming home, doing all of this, sometimes you might want to get a bit more involved. But I do think that where it comes to male-female relationships, and if it is male-dominated, and especially when you have the power dynamic, there can be a lot of these instances where that is kind of, I want to add culturally as well. There are some cultural nuances to this, depending on, I find I'm from an African background, so we have certain things about respecting our elders and speaking in a certain way and all of this kind of stuff. And sometimes that can play into whether we speak up and whether we don't speak up as well. But I love that you've been so open about it and talking about, your experience. And I wonder if you would give any advice to any women. So if they're finding themselves navigating this type of thing and they think what you think, who can I go to? What advice would you give in terms of what would be the best way for them to handle this?
I think, first of all, coming to terms with acknowledging that you do not feel safe in a space is incredibly important. And I feel like as women, what we have a tendency to do is kind of downplay our discomfort, which is not okay. Yeah. There's a reason why they say the gut is kind of like the first brain. Our instinct is our God-given gift to give us an indication when something is not right. Yeah. So understanding that does come from a space that is real and acknowledging that, I think is very important. Don't dismiss if you are not okay. If you're not okay, that is that feeling is literal information being conveyed to you that there's a red flag. Yeah. There's an alarm going off. If you do feel like you are in a place where you don't know who to go to, that is, again, another red flag of that's even more not okay. So you not only don't feel safe where you are, but you're in a situation where you are not safe and alone. Okay, you need to find help. Yeah. If that help doesn't exist in the workplace, meaning like an HR person that you can go to, I would encourage you to seek someone more objective, so outside of the situation. If it's not a family member, perhaps it could be a friend, perhaps it could be someone with more experience in the workplace. Talk about it, speak about it. Even in some cases, like I know we have AI now and we keep joking about ChatGPT, but ask ChatGPT about it. You know what I mean? Like just don't follow everything ChatGPT says, but my point is, do not keep it to yourself. That would be kind of my first piece of advice.
Yeah, I love that. And what role do you think that confidence plays in being able to say no without any guilt? Because there is that guilt of, not like whistleblowing, but there is that guilt of...
There's the guilt of, I don't want to upset the person that's in front of me.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then what will people say or think? How will the story be spun?
Yeah. I mean, we have a saying in our religion that, you know, the holiest people get spoken about in a negative way. So it's not going to come down to you that you're going to get out of it. Everyone, unfortunately, has an idea about what you should be. The only person who knows the truth is you. So I think being bound to what other people will say is another kind of prison that you put yourself in.
Yeah, very true.
And if you're putting yourself in these cages, again, that's another indication that that's a red flag and you're not in a place where you feel safe enough to acknowledge whatever is not okay with you.
It was just, the role that confidence plays in saying no without guilt.
I also think that, to be fair, confidence is something that you build over time. Okay. And what I've noticed, if I compare kind of women that were very confident when I was, you know, starting my career versus the ones now, confidence when I first started my career looked like being quite aggressive. Okay. Being quite aggressive in the way that you articulate your thoughts. And it's very difficult to learn from someone who asserts their self in a way that comes off as aggressive.
Yeah.
Okay. What I've learned, especially in the world we live in now, that your ability to articulate your thoughts and your feelings, whatever they may be, that is confidence today. And the beauty of how it's evolved from that to this centers around this idea of being able, like, that is confidence, because I'm able to not only just listen and hear you, I'm potentially able to learn from what you're saying. And I think that's quite valuable compared to before, because before it was very easy to ignore and dismiss.
Yeah.
While now, whether you like it or not, you're not going to ignore her. But again, it was a different time. So I think when I think about that way versus this way, you know, she was doing what she had to do to survive.
Yeah.
Today, she has a lot more people in her corner, plus social media.
Yeah, the threat of social media. How do you protect your energy and your identity when you're chasing success, especially in male-dominated spaces?
Okay. So I lead with my values now.
Okay.
I lead with my values and I'm very clear on where I stand. And one tool that has really helped me is not feeling like I have to justify every single one of my decisions. I feel like sometimes in the past, I always felt the need to give long, drawn out answers to why I felt or thought a specific way. Now I don't feel that need to. In fact, I don't even think everyone deseres to know, honestly.
Very true.
And funny enough, that's kind of the same space that men function from.
Yeah.
But I kind of learned that from them.
Yeah.
And it's a useful tool. So yeah, I think that's something, that's a way that I protect my energy. It's a way that I draw my boundaries. And I think I still kind of look, at the end of the day, we're all human, and navigating relationships, whatever the context of those relationships can be, brings with it new challenges. So I'm not going to sit here and say that I have it all figured out, but I feel like I'm more empowered today in my ability to articulate when I'm not comfortable, my ability to draw boundaries when I feel like they are necessary, and my ability to assert myself in situations where I feel like I'm not being heard and need to be. And I think those tools at my fingertips now and at this age, that's really how I protect myself, my boundaries, my energy.
Yeah, I love that. I think a lot of what you've said as well comes down to self-awareness, because when you're talking about yourself and just understanding yourself better and knowing what your values are, a lot of people haven't really stopped to ask themselves, what are my values? And we never really know what our values are until they're tested, right? The values will always be tested. That's how we know that it's a value. So it's really nice to see that you're connected with yourself in a very real and authentic way. And you can feel almost when you're kind of going off center from your values and the things that you hold dear. So I love that. I want to touch on women supporting women now, because we kind of alluded to it here and there. But I wonder, when it comes to women supporting women, do you feel like we're doing enough?
I think that it's when it's framed as women supporting women, we're already shooting ourselves in the foot.
Okay.
Because what we're saying is there is no basis beyond our gender, that we should be supporting each other. And what it does is it paralyzes merit. It paralyzes our ability to be objective in evaluating the human that's in front of us, which is dangerous and honestly silly and petty, because it's a response to not having opportunities, because we live in a system that is dominated by men, which doesn't make sense as that is the solution to it. So when I think about women supporting women, I understand that there may be a level of empathy that comes with that. So when I do see a woman that is struggling, especially when I remember myself when I was struggling, I feel like a lot of the way I make connections with women is driven by that empathy. So that's what I think about when I think of women supporting women. But at the end of the day, we're all navigating the same space.
Yes.
And this space that we're navigating is welcome to everyone. It's an equal playing field. And I think that this is where everyone gets confused when we talk about men and women and is it us versus them or are we all in it together? We are talking about a playing field of work. Work that is driven by a skill set that can be possessed by men or women, meaning to be able to play in this field, you need to possess a level of merit. Everyone should have the same opportunity to get into the ring. And then whoever stays in the ring, they stay because of their merit and their skill set. And I think understanding that dynamic is what's going to make us better humans. And it's going to help us develop better relationships, whether it's women to women or women to men. Because I remember part of the challenges, especially when I was starting my career, a lot of the women felt, and I completely understand why, felt like they had to jump through hoops to get to where they got. And they did, 100%. So there was a level of them protecting that space because they had to fight for it. And, it's not easy to get to. I feel like now, with the level of awareness we have as a collective, as society, we don't have to gatekeep anymore.
It's interesting that you say that, and I'm wanting to play devil's advocate slightly because I know that there are some women who are definitely experiencing, especially when it comes to leadership spaces, because there aren't as many women in the most senior positions, or let's say around the boardroom table. There are some experiences that women talk about where other women almost in order to save their space, like you're saying, in order to save and safeguard what they've worked hard for, there's almost like there's no room for any other women because I'm already in here. And to have you in threatens my position. And so I'm just going to block you from getting anywhere. And some women do have that very real experience, even now, unfortunately. And this is what I mean. Some spaces it's not so. And then some spaces we're still, unfortunately, working with old systems.
Yeah.
But what would you say to those women that are having those experiences when it comes to, as the higher you get in the workplace and the less and less women you necessarily see, do you feel like the playing field is level? Because you said like we all come in based on a certain merit, but yeah, do you feel like that's the same as you get higher?
Depends where you are. I do think that at the end of the day, we have inherited a system that has been working for generations. So to break that is going to take time. But I definitely
100%.
don't believe that the solution to breaking that is to come in and act like, or I don't think coming in and expecting special treatment does us any favors as women.
Very true.
And I think that's where the misconception happens. And that's why I said we're shooting ourselves in the foot if we think like that. I am more than my gender. I bring so much more to the table. My gender and everything that comes with it is a nice to have, and it's a plus, and it brings an extra level of experience and empathy and whatever you want to call it. But it doesn't stop there. And I think it's important to recognize that.
So what do you think true allyship actually looks like between women then? What would that look like if we're doing it the right way?
I think allyship looks like being honest about sharing your experiences. Okay? People take for granted how much value comes from me understanding what it took for you to get to where you are. Like, you don't have to open the door for me, but for me to understand that it wasn't easy for you, or her or me or whatever, that helps me understand that it's going to take a lot more than my ambition to get me through that door. So when I say this, I'm not trying to take away from anyone's experience. I know that it's hard. I've lived it. I'm still living it. But I don't walk around with the assumption that I'm expecting someone else to give me that opportunity.
Yeah.
I either create that opportunity or I find a place that really that aligns with my values and what I'm able to bring to the table.
Yeah, it's food for thought, definitely. So when it comes to the seat at the table not being always worth it in your experience, what do you think is worth chasing instead?
You know, I thought about this question a lot and how I wanted to answer it. And I feel like our focus at having a seat at the table has deluded us into this idea that this is a table worth sitting at. And maybe this isn't the right table. So why are you fighting for a seat at it? Because if it's about being seen, then that conversation is not even at this table. That conversation can happen in other spaces. And I think understanding that is key.
That's true. I'm literally visualizing it as you're saying it. And I'm like, yeah, maybe that's not the right table. It's a really good point. It's like, where do we even begin with this, right? How do you define success for yourself today compared to the way you used to define it before?
Success for me today is when what I am doing on the outside is aligned with how I feel on the inside. When I'm aligned to my values, when what I do is when it's aligned to my belief system and my values. And I really try not to compromise that, because when I do, I feel the effect. I feel it hurts.
Yeah, definitely being dishonest or untrue to yourself. I think the more connected you get to yourself, it's like the bigger the price you pay when you go against, what you really feel inside. And like you said, the gut is always telling us what we should and shouldn't be doing. I wonder, when it comes to ambition, is there a myth that you think you just want to smash it once and for all when it comes to women and women's ambitions?
I think framing women's ambitions purely around being a superwoman that has it all is quite toxic. I think ambition in general is something that is defined on a person by person basis, whether you're a woman or a man.
Yeah.
Ambition for a lot of people is being a mother, and that's incredibly beautiful and a journey in itself. Not having a career does not equate not having a life. And by that same token, not necessarily not having a family or kids or whatever that other path is, not having that does not equate to not having a life. But I am someone that does truly believe that, as humans, connection is very, very important, and you need to surround yourself with people. I don't believe in this idea of just kind of living this isolated life, just chasing something that you may or may not get. And I think that's one of the biggest things that, I've changed.
I love that. So if you could leave the women listening with one bold piece of advice, what would it be?
My advice to women, although I don't like giving advice or imposing advice, is what I hope for you is you will see in yourself what you see in others, and you will give yourself a chance to shine and enjoy shining, and not shy away from asking for what you want, because you, like everyone else, deserve it.
I love that. So you are still on this journey of becoming.
Mm-hmm.
You are becoming the best version of yourself, the most authentic version of yourself, the most beautiful version of yourself. What, in your words, does becoming her mean to you?
Becoming her means very similar to, if you've read the book The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, becoming her is my journey back home. So it's giving myself the space to experience everything that this beautiful life has to offer in the limited time that I have on this planet, in this world. And hopefully, if I'm lucky enough, I get to make it back home.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. I love that. Okay, I have some rapid fire questions.
Go for it.
For us to draw to a close. So it's finish the sentence. Okay. I lead best when I stop trying to X and start trusting Y.
When I stop trying to explain myself to everyone and start following my instinct.
Love it. The boldest move I ever made as a leader was?
To listen versus have all the answers.
I love it. Power to me looks like?
Power looks like humility.
You're making me go deep into thought with every answer. I'm like, this is not rapid fire anymore. I'm like pausing. Success used to mean X and now it means Y.
Success used to mean achievement. Now means faith.
Wow. So deep. Before we draw to a close, I just want you to tell us about the work that you're doing now. Mm-hmm. Who is it for? What's the mission behind it?
Okay. Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity to do that. And thank you for this conversation. What I'm doing now, so my podcast, Something to Consider, is centered around this idea of having very real conversations with people around their journey in entrepreneurship and beyond, through the lens of their life experiences and how their mental health or culture affected that in any way, shape, or form. So it's brought along some beautiful conversations and revelations, not just for me, but for my audience, which I'm so grateful for that listen. Mm-hmm. And then the work that I do, I run a company called Bark Berg. It's a strategy and story-based studio. We develop IP and we develop strategies to help brands and business owners bring their visions to life through execution. And the IP we develop is very centered around IP for film, TV, and narrative-driven podcasts as well.
Oh, right.
So this idea of telling stories.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's really beautiful. I love that. Okay, so before we wrap up, if someone's listening right now and they're saying, I love this woman, I need more of her in my life, where do they find you? How can they connect with you?
Please follow me on Instagram. Instagram works, LinkedIn works. My podcast is on all the platforms. I have a YouTube page as well. But I think Instagram's the best place.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much for your time, Dana. It's been lovely having you. Thank you for this conversation. It's a lot of food for thought for people to think about whether the seat at the table that they are after is actually really worth it. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and see you next time.